Well, there's a new name on the back of the Springbok jerseys for the next 4 years, and that name is Pick and Pay. Welcome back to the Business Rugby Show. As always, joined by our Business Rugby insider Rory Stain, as well as Pick and Pay CEO Sean Summers. Rory, do you want to kick us off?
Certainly. It's an absolute pleasure, Sean, and thank you so much for giving us your time, especially at the very short notice that we gave you. Normally when we get the group CEO of Pick and Pay on a business show, it will be when you release results or, talking about the progress of the stores and the group. But it's a completely different context this morning, and it's a very exciting one. We are absolutely delighted to hear that there is a new name on the back of the shirts. Change is always good. So perhaps, Sean, you would walk us through that. What is the genesis? What were the conversations? What was happening behind the scenes? And why did you decide to attach that brand that is so well known throughout our country to our beloved box?
Well, morning, guys, and great to be with you. It was a process that's been going on for quite a while. In our clothing division, we've enjoyed really fantastic sales of the Springbok clothing apparel over quite a protracted period of time now, specifically the last World Cup, fantastic success. So we were in discussion with Saru about the rights that go with tying that up. And that conversation continued to evolve. And, specifically for us in Pick and Pay, if you look where we are at the moment, the journey that we're on, we're really trying to restore Pick and Pay back to its former glory again. The truth is that there is really only one thing that really unifies and unites everybody and everything in South Africa, and that is the Springboks. So we could think of nothing that could be more appropriate to really sort of put our pride and our stake in the ground for Pick and Pay. And the fact that Pick and Pay is going nowhere, but coming back again and going forward and moving up and starting a similar sort of journey that the Springboks commenced, they're sort of 5-8 years ago when they pulled themselves out of the doldrums.
Sean, you're spot on, and we must commend you and your team for taking that decision, because it's not just the unifying effect of the Springboks, but we've said it before on this show. They are everything that is good and excellent about South Africa. They're everything that we should all be aspiring to. The team ethic that they have, the working together, and all the various components. Rugby already has a head start. We all know that, because there's a position for every body shape, for every ability. You've got big, strong men and you've got short, fast ones, and it all works together. But they epitomize everything that our country can be. So we commend you. Well done on identifying that, and we certainly look forward to seeing that pick, be reflected in the share price and everything that you have a look at as the CEO, Sean. So well done, and thank you for that. The obvious thing to say is that there will probably be a lot of memes and facetious jokes about one of your competitors, because that awful shirt that the Boks wore in the first game of the World Cup against Scotland in Paris in 2023, comes to mind. Do you have any ambitions or any influence over the design and what the look and feel of that shirt will ultimately look like when you go to the away strips?
Certainly that has already been passed in comments when we had our discussions with them, but I mean, that's not a major issue for me. Memes and these little things that pop up today are just the realities of the world that we live in. Sort of guerrilla marketing is not for us something that we engage in. So, we'll just look at everything in a positive note and move forward. But I would sincerely hope that they do come up with a more appropriate strip. Never mind its resemblance to our competitor in terms of its color. It was god-awful.
It was
put up.
The antithesis of what a Springbok shirt should look
be,
like, if I may say.
Yeah.
So, Sean, just before we let you go, are you a rugby man? Do you follow the URC?
Absolutely. Follow it all. And other than Japan, I've been at every single World Cup final. So I've been to them all. I've had the pleasure of from 95 right the way through. So it's been phenomenal.
What a privilege. So then let me ask you, before we let you go, We've got 4 South African teams in 4 different fixtures this weekend. 2 of them are away, they're on the road, and we've got the Bulls and the Sharks at home. So let's talk first of all about the Bulls. They're hosting Zebra Palmer at Loftus. Zebra second from the bottom. How do you see that one playing out there?
Obviously Jake and his men, the Bulls, they have been coming back as well. They've had a little bit of a sort of a dodgy period that they went through, but they certainly seem to be strengthening up and coming back onto the front foot again. So I think that should be a clear victory for them.
I agree. And the Bulls' home, we've been saying their home form has been a little up and down. The Bulls don't often lose at Loftus, and they lost almost like one too many. And just the pride that they have in that fortress that is Loftus Versfeld. I agree. I think that they're going to win comfortably there, Sean. And then the big one, I think, of the whole weekend is arguably the Sharks hosting Leinster. Top of the table by a country mile, hadn't lost a game in 12. They lost last weekend. But I cannot I'm waiting for the lineups to reveal themselves, and the lineups are not revealing themselves other than the fact that the Sharks have picked a very strong team. So the Sharks have gone with Bongi and Banambi and Oxenche and Sia Kolisi. They've got Mpimpi on the left wing. They've got Saffontein back at 12, and they've got the Hendrickses at 9 and 10. So I'd love to know what Leinster are thinking there. But what do you see in that game, irrespective?
Well, obviously, it's going to be a very tough game. I mean, Leinster, is another one of the sort of the top teams, almost one of the rugby royalty teams, like some of the French teams at the moment. So, I mean, Leinster, certainly the depth of what they have in their bench and on the field is pretty profound. And again, the Sharks have had a bit of a patchy season this year, some extraordinary, outstanding games. Only the following week to ask if it's actually the same team that's on the field.
Last week being a case in point. I mean, a lot of the Biz News tribe had given up on them, and then somehow they came and pulled the irons out of the fire, but they really are an enigma. And I think the issue there, Sean, may be the fact that they don't have an identity. They don't know who they are with and without the Springboks. Whereas the Lions, and we can talk about them, the Lions know exactly who they are. They don't have the big names. They play for one another. It's a great comparison. So the Lions travel to Scotstoun in Glasgow on Sunday morning, quite early our time. Do you think they have the firepower to beat Glasgow on the road, Glasgow in second position in those horrendous weather conditions?
I think, again, it's going to be very tough for the Lions. But the point that you make about the Lions is that they do play for each other. And I think that's the strength of the Boks. And, that's one of the things that in Pick n Pay, when it looked at us signing up with the Boks for this 4-year period, was that they represent everything that a team could be if the players play for each other.
Great point. And I'm sure you agree that we just love the way the Lions play rugby. So that's going to be a really open game because Glasgow Warriors have got a poisonous backline and the Lions love to run from everywhere. What a great game that should be. Let's just hope it isn't spoiled by some ridiculous Glaswegian weather. The last one, Sean, and the second team on the road is our Stormers from down where you hail from, travel across the Irish Sea to Ulster. Both Ulster and the Stormers come off 2 back-to-back wins. How do you see that one playing out there in Belfast?
Rory, it's almost the exact same thing. I mean, as you say, Stormers is obviously my beloved team. Yeah, it always has been. I was born and raised in Cape Town. I had my fondest days at Newlands, obviously, as a kid. But, the Stormers, again, it's just the inconsistencies. There's so much talent in that team. We've got such magnificent background players in that team that are free to foot, that are absolutely incredible, and they can switch it from half to half. So the Stormers can pull off any win against anybody on the day.
Correct. And it's heartening, I believe, to see Damian Willemse finally back at fullback. He had that horrendous injury, made a comeback that didn't last long. In fact, he injured it against Glasgow, re-injured it against Glasgow in Stellenbosch, but he's back there. We've got Sasha back there. So Sean, I dare say, and by the way, before I converted to become a Glasgow Warriors supporter, I too was a Stormers supporter, being born in Pinelands. So I'm going to go with the Stormers actually pulling this one through. It's not easy to win in Belfast, but I think they're going to be buoyed by all of these, these top players coming back. So come on, Glasgow. Come on, Stormers. Go and prove Sean Summers and the Biz News tribe correct. So, Sean, we wish you well, sir. We are all in awe of this wonderful business that your late dad built, and we wish you well in all of the resurrection and rejuvenation initiatives. None less so than putting that famous PNP and Pick and Pay lettering on the back of our beloved Springbok shirt. So thank you again, Sean, for your time. We truly appreciate you making time for us. Everything of the best.
So I just have to correct one Freudian slip. I worked for Raymond Ackerman for my entire life. He was my second father. So, but certainly, it is a large part. It is absolutely a large part of why I'm back.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So he's your
No
de
problem.
facto father. I do apologize, but I'm glad you corrected it, and I'm glad you see him as your dad. So thank you for that.
No, for sure. Okay. You guys have a great day.
Yeah, so what a wonderful conversation with Sean Summers there, Rory. Really exciting news for the Springboks and
Absolutely.
for Pick and Pay. But let's move into the 8 big games we've got this weekend. So a bit of an upgrade this week. We've got a bit of a form chart, some information about the games, the teams, etc. this week. We got this for all the games. So game number 1, kicking off tonight, 9:30, at Kingspan Stadium. Both teams pretty all right form. Both won their last 2 games. 9th versus 8th, pretty close on the table as well. Who do you see winning here, and by how many?
Yeah. So as I was saying earlier, Patrick, it's a tough place to go and win in Belfast, and I've been waiting almost for Ulster to start firing this season, and they've waited until the last, and I hope that's not the bad omen that I suspect it may be for the Stormers, because the Stormers are buoyed by the return of Damian Willemse. We've already seen Sasha back at 10, so they've got a poisonous backline with a host of skills. I actually see the Stormers winning this one, but this late form of Ulster worries me. So I'm going to go with the Stormers by 8 or 9 points. Please don't prove me wrong, Stormers.
And then game number 2 on our double header tonight, Edinburgh versus obviously the struggling Dragons. Is it just going to be more red above the Dragons there?
Sadly, I think there will be, and the reason I say that is I was reading on Scottish Rugby on their website this week, where Edinburgh are just saying it is unacceptable for them not to make the playoffs, and as you can see, they are 3 positions off the playoffs. Actually 4, because they've got to get into 8th to make the playoffs. They've got all their Scotland Six Nations stars returning. They've got Duan van der Merwe and Darcy Graham back. They've got Jamie Ritchie back. They've got the hookers, Ashman and Dave Cherry. Cherry's on the bench, all coming back. They're starting Velicott on the bench, I think, and not at 9. But they've got Grant Gilchrist back in the second row. So their big guns are all back, and they played really well last week. They've surprised the last couple of teams that they've played. So I'm going to go with Edinburgh with a comfortable win at in Edinburgh, in the host city. I'm not sure whether they're going to be playing at Murrayfield. I'm sure they're going to probably play at the Hive Stadium, because Dragons won't draw a large enough crowd in there. But the Hive Stadium sits right alongside Murrayfield. So I'm going to go with Edinburgh by 16 points.
Perfect. And then into our first Saturday game, Bulls at home against Zebra. Bulls, bit of on-off form, but looking strong, and I think they've sort of turned Loftus back into the fortress that it should be. Is this another win after their Leinster victory last week?
Yeah, I think it is. And, we were talking with Sean, they're sick and tired of losing at home. Said that a few times. Zebra are sitting only just above the Dragons in 15th position on the log. So I see this as a comfortable win for the Bulls. I've looked at the team. The Bulls have picked a strong side, as have Zebra. They've brought their strongest team. But the reality is that the majority of Italian internationals sit down the road in Parma with Benetton. So I think we are going to look at the Bulls by 18 or 20 points there, Patrick.
And then Connacht against Munster.
Yeah, Irish derby. Munster lost to Glasgow last weekend, so they'll be hurting. They don't want to be tumbling any further down the table. But we've always said how tough it is to go to Galway and win, and now there's just a little bit of added spice and needle because it's a local Irish team going across there. So a kind of a tough one to call this, actually. And I want to say that I'm backing the weather, the parochial support in Connacht to do it for them, but I'm going to say Munster by 3.
Scarlets Ospreys.
I think the current form that the Ospreys are showing, they really have played nicely in their past few games. Scarlet's a bit on and off, although by no means out of it. But I think the Ospreys want to consolidate that playoff position. So I'm going to say an away win by 4 points for the Ospreys.
And then my home team, the Sharks, are on some good form. I know the Leinster lineup isn't out yet, and like you said, the Sharks have got a strong lineup going into this game. Should they be a bit too strong at home?
I do think so. That's the way things should happen, even if Leinster bring their big guns back in. There's a lot of Irish internationals in Leinster. However, that's a Sharkbok team again. Big guns in there for the Sharks. I think they're hurting. They know that they owe their fans. They've got a lot of faithful followers like you who support the Sharks, and I think that they're going to be wanting to show, what they can do against the top team, the top seeded team in the URC is Leinster, and it would be rather nice to see Leinster lose 2 on the road. So I'm going to go Sharks by 3.
And then Benetton against Cardiff in Palma. A bit of topsy-turvy form there from Benetton, but Cardiff not looking the strongest, but having just come off a win against the Lions. Who's your pick here?
So it's an interesting one, but I'm going to go with the home team here because Benetton will now have all of their returning Six Nations internationals. And, just to have those wonderful centres, Melangelo and Brex back there, I don't know whether Seb Negri's injury is going to keep him out of this fixture. But Cardiff are the best of the Welsh teams, they're 5th, Ospreys are 7th, both showing, in fact, Ospreys' form is actually a little better than Cardiff's right now, I think. But I'm going to go with a home win here because Benetton want to climb up those 2 or 3 positions and get into the top 8 as well. So I'm going to say Benetton, close game, 6 points.
And then Glasgow Warriors at home against the Lions. I know you briefly mentioned it earlier. Is this a Warriors win?
This is a Warriors win. The Lions, first of all, their away form isn't good. Second of all, Glasgow's home record is impeccable, although they went and lost it to the Ospreys a couple of weeks ago. So they're smarting from that. They pulled it right last week. But they don't lose easily, Glasgow. As we know, the Stormers went there in last year's quarterfinal and were comfortably beaten by Glasgow Warriors. They too have all of their Scottish internationals back and a couple of people back from injury. So I'm seeing the Glasgow's winning there by 14 points.
Well, a wonderful chat with Sean Summers earlier on in the episode, Rory, and then also 8 big games this weekend in the URC. And I think, like you said, between 13th and 8th, there's 3 points difference. It's still up for grabs basically to anyone. So a lot riding on every game this weekend.
And don't you love that? Don't you just love the fact that this table is so congested as we move into the business end? It's now really a matter of every single match now this is round 14. We've got to get to round 18. And I don't think we're going to know those playoff positions until around 18. So it's very healthy, and it keeps the fans engaged because you're jumping from URC to Investec Champions Cup to Six Nations back into the URC, and it can get distracting. But I think now they've got our attention, Patrick, and it's going to be a great weekend of viewing. So find that warm spot on the couch. Go and do a park run in the morning, everybody. And then, get your biltong ready and let's watch some absorbing rugby. Thank you, Patrick. And if you're watching again, Sean Summers, thank you so much again for giving us your time and our very best wishes for this exciting journey that you undertake with the Springboks.
Yeah.
Happy watching, everybody. Good weekend.
Sean Summers was with us, and he is the CEO of Pick and Pay. Rory Stain is our BizNews Rugby Insider, and I'm Patrick Kidd from biznews.com.